A quick little update on Free Comics Book Day. Marvel has finally announced an actual date of when their title is going to be released, or titles, I should say. It's in July. And there's a little bit more to the news to talk about. Also, want to hit what DC's doing with their title, because that's long awaited. And why aren't more people upset that Free Comic Book Day is now splitting to be done just by publisher and not as one event? Let's talk about that too. Hey, everybody, this is Perch. Flying a little bit under the radar of all the news that's gone on over the weekend around DC leaving Diamond. And what's interesting is a lot of people have made the point that this is breaking with tradition. It's bad for the industry. It makes things more complicated. It's going to be a break from tradition, and that's bad for comics because comics are, if nothing else, their tradition. So the story that hit this morning a little bit about Free Comics Day is interesting to me because it's another case where we are breaking from tradition. In this case, what's happening is Marvel has announced they're not going to work with the other publishers as one event, which would be hard to do anyway right now with the pandemic and everything else and trying to shuffle it. And instead, they're going to release their two titles, Spider-Man, Venom, Free Comic Book Day, and X-Men, Free Comic Book Day, on July 15th. So a little bit more than a month from now. And they're not going to wait for the other publishers. They're just going to do it on their own. Now, first off, I just want to state for the record, because somebody will mention it, this is nowhere near as big a scale and scope as DC leaving Diamond. I'm not trying to say that at all, but it is yet another break from tradition. It is yet another change. And the whole point with Free Comic Book Day was to kind of rally around one event where people could come into the shop, get a number of different titles, not just one, and overall grow the business. And for a little bit of historical perspective, Marvel was, I don't want to say reluctant is always the right word, but there have been rumblings all the way back to 2013, I want to say 2014 at least, probably earlier, that Marvel was never super thrilled about doing this at the same time as everyone else. There was some talk and even some news about doing just a Marvel comic book day and not being there with everyone else. It basically, the Marvel's point was, hey, a lot of people are going to come in for these titles that we promote. We're going to put the effort into getting people into shops for Marvel books. And then, we're basically giving free advertising to a bunch of other smaller publishers who are then going to have their titles stacked up next to ours. That was kind of the point that was made. So I'm not completely surprised to see them breaking off. It is interesting that, and it makes sense, by the way, of all the moves that have gone on over the last couple of months, Marvel's Free Comic Book Day tends to be springboard, to their events. It tends to be marketing to what they want to promote through the summer and the fall. And given that Marvel's been MIA because they've been closed, and they're slowly coming back into the picture, they have to do something to get interest back. DC's got the death metal wave riding quite strong right now, so Marvel needs to do something, and it makes sense to get these titles out sooner rather than later so they can start doing that. The two titles in particular, the X-Men title will be an X of Swords prologue by Jonathan Hickman and Pepe Larraz, which will be nice to see that team up again. And then there's a second story that's a mystery classified story, which will be a Tom Taylor, Iban Coelho. And it's we haven't heard Taylor announce anything for the X-Men universe, but this comic book, and sometimes Free Comic Book Day, you don't get, you'll have a Spider-Man story and an X-Men story in the same issue. It's not like it's an X-Men issue. But this one, they are marketing it as Free Comic Book Day 2020 X-Men. So they're branding it X-Men. And that's a leading story. So it's not a lock that second story is within the X-Men universe, but it seems like it. Tom Taylor hasn't been involved in Dawn of X and really hasn't been involved in X-Men at all since X-Men Red. So it'll be curious to see what he's doing here. Safe money is on it is an X-Men something. And that safe money is also that it's the December event that Marvel wants to start promoting. Over in the Spider-Man side of the world, we don't know too much about it. We will have a story by Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman from the Venom team. We will have a Black Cat, Jed MacKay, Patrick Gleason story. And they were hyping this as a game changing. Now, the thing we know that's coming up for Venom is the Null invasion of Earth and kind of that big storyline. Null is coming, so it seems like we're getting some level of Null story, but beyond that, it's hard to believe that the Black Cat backup story is going to be game changing for the Spider-Man universe. But it seems like we're going to get some level of at least lead into what a Spider-Man Venom team up would look like. So those are the two books, July 15th, as I mentioned. I think then we look over at DC World. DC had a free comic book day. We don't have dates on it yet, but we do know that Brett Booth and Scott Lobdell did a story for it, and it was a pretty critical story, kind of teeing up the how they left with Flash Forward, where we had Wally West inherit Dr. Manhattan's powers, sitting on the Mobius chair. And that Brett Booth in my interview with him a while back mentioned that there's a page in there that's just a huge jam page of just a page that will make your jaw drop, he said. And so I've been very much looking forward to that. I'm anxious to see when this issue comes out. With the changes to Death Metal, I'm curious if that story has changed, because at least from me kind of making some guesses at it, it seemed like at least some of what was being done was to kind of paint the universe post Death Metal, but I'm not sure. So who knows if that story has been adjusted somewhat, but I'm anxious to see that come out. Would love to see DC do that. But at the moment, DC's marketing is all in on Death Metal and just getting that to land. They haven't really picked up anything from the Generation series or G5 or any of that. So it'll be curious to see where that goes. But I'll end with this. I think it is curious still that we're not seeing the outrage, the complaint. This is fresh news. It's just broke. So we'll see if people get upset with it. But if you're a comic retailer right now, you have to take a step backward and really kind of take stock of what's going on in the industry right now, because a number of things are changing. And I think some of the comic retailers and some of the publishers, some of the creators, some of the people in the business have been kind of laboring under this belief that if they're angry enough, if they can be upset enough, that some of these moments will be pulled back. But at this point, we've hit the point of no return. DC has broken with Diamond. That's not changing. The free comic book day, again, small, not comparable, but it's now splintering, where the issues are going to come out separately. Maybe if I'm looking at the bright side, somebody on Twitter says, "Oh, I'm too optimistic." I'm not sure how bringing kind of solid news is optimism, but okay. It is what it is. I think if I am looking for a positive in this, though, it is if the companies, the publishers, are going to take more responsibility for marketing their books and to put their best foot forward. That would be a great thing. That would be great if this is the start of actually pushing more kind of self momentum. I felt like Free Comic Book Day and some of those efforts have often been crutches that the publishers have used to get out of marketing as much as they should. So maybe this helps that. I like I said, I think a number of things. If you're in this business, a number of things are changing, and your head right now should be, sit back, take stock, stop maybe listening to the same old voices for a little while, take a little pause on that, and really try and assess where things are going and how you're going to plug into that. Because I'm seeing a lot of kind of circling the wagon behavior, a lot of kind of the same old stuff. And, this business is not wealthy enough to really keep these foundations. If some really disruptive things come into the picture, it's going to change stuff fast. And I think people should start getting their heads around that very, very quickly. Anyway, what do you think? Are you excited for these Free Comic Book Day issues? Do you care that Marvel's going in on their own? Does it matter to you? What does it mean to you? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe. Hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. That would be most appreciated. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.